The Cullars rotation is the oldest soil fertility experiment in the South today. There's no other experiments older, and it's the oldest cotton study, the second oldest cotton study in the world. The old rotation nearby being the oldest cotton study. You have to imagine what was like here in the early part of the 20th century with almost 4 million acres of cotton planted, and cotton on sandy soils had developed this problem they were calling cotton rust. And the leaves would fire up in August and fall off the plant. They had no idea what was causing it. In fact, there was a professor at Auburn University at that time called Professor George Atkinson, and he was a biologist. And he thought it was a disease organism. So he looked for all these diseases, and he found them, but none of them actually caused cotton rust. They were a consequence of cotton rust. So he tried some things that would correct it, and lo and behold, this chemical called kainit prevented cotton from getting the rust. And at that time, they knew that kainit was mainly a potash or a potassium fertilizer. And Professor Atkinson finally concluded that this cotton rust was caused by a deficiency of potassium. And that really kind of started the fertilizer industry in the South. Now, we think that it was on this site here where Professor Atkinson did his work in the 1880s. But it wasn't until 1911 till the actual Cullars rotation got started, because at that time there was an appropriation by the Alabama legislature to the Agricultural Experiment Station at Auburn to do soil fertility research on farmers' plots all over the state, mainly to look at kainit or potassium fertilizers and their effect on cotton growth. Well, one of those cooperating farmers was a Mr. J.A. Cullars, who farmed this land right here, along with his brother-in-law, John Alvis. And they put this huge experiment that started in 1911, and the experiment occupies about 3 acres of land. So it was a huge experiment at the time. And of course, it involved cotton. It involved cotton rotating with corn and rotating with oats at that time and cowpeas. In 1938, the heirs to Mr. Alvis and Mr. Cullars sold the property to Alabama Polytechnic Institute as a research site. And it has been a research site ever since then. And today we're even learning new things about the effects of long-term effects of fertilizers and lime on crop production. There's nowhere you can go in the southern United States and find sites where you can actually see potassium deficiency, phosphorus deficiency, the effect of acid soils, all in one site, one demonstration site. You can see that here. You can see nutrient deficiencies on 5 different crops over a course of over the course of a year. And of course, you go out on farmers' fields and you talk about deficiencies, but you never see them because farmers do a good job of fertilizing. But the reason you never see it is because of experiments like this. It's also a great place to bring students to show them these effects. And one question I get a lot from consumers today is, well, the question goes something like this: aren't we wearing out our land? The effect of using all those chemical fertilizers is destroying the productivity of our soil, the long-term sustainability of agriculture. Isn't this bad? Well, I come here and I can show them plots, and actually the yields are continuing to go up where we practice good agricultural management practices, replace the nutrients that are removed in the crops, and do a good job of soil testing and doing the things that we know we should be doing on the land. Today it's a laboratory in sustainable agriculture, because you can see some amazingly productive plots out here. And then the plots that I really like are what I call the know-nothing plots that has received nothing since 1911. It's a desert. Nothing grows on them. So it's a pretty interesting experiment in that you can see where we have not added any lime, the pH is about 4.3, and corn might grow a little bit, cotton and soybeans don't grow at all. The no potash plots. And the reason the experiment was put here, we think, is because Professor Atkinson has did his work 30 years earlier with potassium fertilizers. And cotton will grow fine, but usually about August it gets this rust and the leaves fall off of it. The Cullars rotation was here many, many decades before the art museum was, and it's surprisingly they've been very complimentary, because where else will you go to a nice modern art museum with all the glitz and the glamour associated with it, and have right across the street from it crops going, showing in effect the history of the state, because in 1911 there was almost 4 million acres of cotton. This is a site that has preserved the soil and shows what can be done with good management practices.